From Bosstrack, it's Her HypeSquad, a show about amazing women who've made incredible strides as leaders in their industry. They're here to support you in your leadership growth, to encourage you and hype you up as part of your Hype Squad. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Her Hype Squad with Bosstrack. I'm your host, Michelle Harris. Today I'm talking with Gladys Mezrahi, President and CEO of Indigo Events and founder of the Power of the Heels Foundation. Gladys and I talk about mentoring young women to disrupt the poverty cycle. We talk about what the gender gap is and what can be done about it, how women can ask for what you deserve at work, and the importance of your personal brand. Before we get into our conversation, let me give you a quick overview of Gladys's multidimensional and inspiring bio. Gladys is President and CEO of Indigo Events, an international events company with clients that span the globe and industries, including Visa, Disney, the Museum of Modern Art in Colombia, and the Miami International Book Fair. Gladys is also the founder of the Power of the Heels Foundation, which empowers and mentors young girls and women and connects them to create a financial force. Her career started at a very young age in Colombia when she founded a top-line skin and body products manufacturing company, which she successfully ran for 15 years and then sold to an international skincare corporation. Gladys has been featured in the Miami Herald and was recognized as one of the 2016 International Businesswomen of the Year by the Organization of Women in Trade and Event Marketing, as well as being awarded a proclamation in the Florida Senate. She's the award-winning author of More Wow and Less Oops. Through all the awards and recognitions, which are too many to be named here, Gladys considers her greatest accomplishment to be raising 2 wonderful children, Debbie and Nassim, and 5 wonderful grandchildren with her husband Samuel of more than 40 years. I'm so excited to bring you my conversation with Gladys Mezrahi. Oh, a quick note. I want to apologize in advance to Indra Nooyi. I mistakenly said she was making her way early in her career in the 70s, but it was actually the 80s. She was just heading off to college in the late 70s. It didn't seem right as soon as I said it, so my apologies. Also, a disclaimer to add about this conversation. I want to ask our listeners who are men to hang in there and please don't get defensive listening to parts of this discussion. It's hard to have conversations like this in a way to qualify everything that needs to be qualified. Please realize some of what we talk about are generalizations based on a pool of millions of people, and we of course realize there are so many exceptions, including, most likely, you. So thank you so much for listening. Well, hi Gladys. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation about closing the gender gap, and I know there's so much important and valuable information you have to share. But I'd love for you to share just a little bit about you in your own words, if you don't mind.
Hi, Michelle. Really, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm Gladys Mezrahi. I'm the founder of the Power of the Heels and Indigo Events. I've been doing events for over 35 years, which led me to do the events for the Power of the Heels and empowering young girls and women. And part of what we saw is trying to close the gender gap. So that's how it all came together. So we divided in 2 parts. Our goal is to disrupt the poverty cycle. And by disrupting the poverty cycle, I mean that if we prepare these girls, we can change that cycle that they've been coming from at-risk girls, from low-income families, that they tend to continue the same pattern as their grandmother, as their mothers continue. So our goal is to disrupt that pattern and help them move forward and become independent.
Oh, I love that. I love that mission. And you said you provide mentorship. Is that do you have individual people that are part of the Power of the Heels that consult or meet and meet with the girls, or do you have events that do that?
We have a program that's called the Loving Me More, which we do once a month. We do it at the Aventura Library. And we do have a lot of mentors that have come in and speak to the girls in different ways. So, for example, we taught them how to do a budget. And one of the nice things, I love the example of one of the girls that came to me 2 months later with a little bag. And she said, there's $123. And I said, oh, that's amazing. Where did you get this? And she said, no, based on what you taught us on how to save money in the budget, I saved $123.
Oh.
And this is for you. And I said, no, 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 this is not for me. This is for you. And the expression in her face when she saw that that money was for her, that was like priceless.
Oh.
The power that you give these girls when they know that they are able to get some money for their own. Like the following month, she told me that she had an emergency and that she felt really good that she didn't have to ask her dad for money. So now thanks to Banesco, all the girls that open a bank account they have eliminated the fees. So she opened the bank account and now she graduated and she has a job right now, and her employer deposits directly to her savings account.
Oh.
So this is what it's all about. If we can just change one girl's life, we can change a whole village.
Oh, that's such a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing it. I don't think I've ever had that conversation with you. So I'm wow, it's so amazing. And you must feel so wonderful, yeah, being part
That
of
part
that.
is priceless.
Yeah.
Or the fact, for example, I mentor a lot of girls, especially in the event industry, and I teach them. And a lot of my interns I have hired, but if I cannot hire them, I get them jobs. And last week I had a really good intern, and she said, okay, I'm graduating. I need to start looking for a job. And she called me 2 days ago and she said, I found a job. Thank you so much. I put her in contact with somebody and she got a job.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
that part is, if there's a Chinese proverb that if you give someone a fish, they will eat for one day. But if you teach someone to fish, they will never go hungry.
Yeah.
And that is that's the principle that I based on a lot of things.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us and with the audience. And I know we're here to talk about closing the gender gap, but something, of course, with Bosstrack, that is one of the reasons we founded Bosstrack, is to really help women, new women leaders, prepare themselves so they're ready to move up the ladder faster, because we do see that every rung in the ladder, women lose representation at every step. So this is really a topic that is very interesting to us. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does it mean to close the gender gap for you?
So let's start, for example, I'm going to give you a few facts, a few statistics that we do not really see them in the US. Because when we talk about poverty, we think that poverty is in Africa, in Latin America, but actually 42.5 million people are on the poverty line in the US. And out of those, 20.9 million are women. And that is a very sad statistic, So and let me give you, so the gender gap is basically what the women gets paid versus a white male. So for example, a white woman gets paid 79 cents to a dollar compared to men. When they get $1, white women get 79 cents. A Black woman gets paid 64 cents, even less. A Hispanic woman gets paid 57 cents, and an Asian woman 52. And that is really not fair because 101% we do the same job as men. So there's no excuse. But there are two things. One, that we do not ask for a better payment. That is something that women don't do. They literally don't ask. And I'm going to tell you another example of another girl that I mentored. She came to me and said, I'm doing the same job as a man. He's paid $80,000 and I'm being paid $60,000. So we analyzed that they were actually doing the same job. And I said to her, okay, so you're going to go and ask for $90,000. And she said, why? Why more? I said, because first of all, you're worth it. And second of all, if they're paying him 80, that's the least you're going to get. The problem is that we don't ask. She did ask, and you know what? She got the 90.
Oh, wow.
They didn't say no. So I tell them always, we already have the no. Let's go and ask for the yes.
Yeah. There's a book, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Ask for More, that I read probably a year or two ago, and kind of talks about the same thing, about how women are just, I don't know, hesitant to ask when they are, obviously deserved.
Correct. So the other part that we analyze is that the only way to close the gender gap is with education and with getting women at the top levels. Because if a woman is on a board of a company or on a higher position, she can literally make those decisions herself and say, okay, if a man gets $1, the woman can also get $1. And the only way is to do that. And we found out that if we do a prevention course, and this is why the Loving Me More program is about, that if we start educating girls and women since they are young, we can prepare them for college and then prepare them for a career. So we can literally take action starting before. Because it's not that you're going to put a woman right from the start at a board position. No.
Right. I was just gonna say, so for women that are already in leadership positions, or moving into leadership positions, is there any advice you have, or is there anything that they can do to start closing the gender gap?
Well, let's start from telling these women that we are losing $1.6 trillion according to the World Bank, because those $1.6 trillion means the difference in salary between men and women. So if you can grasp that amount in your head, then we can start closing the gap.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good campaign from the Women's Fund that they did, and it was a little girl saying, to her dad, Dad, why do you pay women more? Less. So that is one of the things that we can do.
Perfect. Thank you. And I wanted to go back to the pay that you mentioned. I think I heard recently that women in the tech industry maybe have less of a gap than in other industries. Have you heard that? And would you have any thoughts on and why that is? Is there something that you noticed or see in that industry specifically?
Actually, yes. And there was a company that I'm looking to get the CEO because he was inspired by one of my talks, and he started hiring women in technology. And he said that they were much better, that women in technology are much better. But I think some of it is our fault. We don't do the research, and women don't do the research and say, I can make the same, I can get paid the same. And I think that we need to step up and say, yes, why are you paying men more? I want this. But now I think it's more not only about closing the gender gap, but also there's something for women that is more important. They do not ask for more because they also want to balance their time. But I don't think we need to choose between one or the other. I think we can get it both. Like you can have a flexible time so that you can spend time with your kids, your family, because women actually are able to do their job. It doesn't matter what time of the day. And if they do their job, it doesn't matter. And I think that's a way of balancing, that they think that if they have a flexible schedule, they cannot ask for more. And that is also another mistake.
Yeah. Do you actually, just with the recent year or two, hear a lot of reports about women leaving the workplace? And do you, I mean, I'm guessing because of the balance and having to care for their families. Do you have any thoughts on what's happened over the last year or two?
Well, a lot of women, that's why it came the Great Resignation, that they were faced with a situation after or during COVID that they had to be in the house and that they had to take care of their kids and their family. And they saw the difference of how life was. And then when they had to go back to work, they saw what they were leaving behind. So it's like, okay, I balanced everything in my house. I was able to be with my kids, but I was also doing my job. I was also taking care of my family. Why can't I have that? And that is one of the reasons that a lot of women don't want to go back, or they can't. Or they can't go back because some of the jobs are not flexible.
Yeah.
And we all saw that they had to become teachers, caretakers, mothers, chefs, and it was hard.
Yeah, I think that becoming a teacher, from just my own experience with the family and friends, was one of the most difficult parts of working from home during the time when schools were closed, and having to step in and be there, and especially for like younger grade school kids who really needed that hands-on time. And just goes to show, how much respect we really need to give to teachers, I think.
Oh, and I think the teachers should be on the first line of getting paid much more, because everything is about education.
Yeah.
And if we value education, then we should increase the teachers' salary so that they can really step up to it.
Yeah.
No, I remember one day I was during COVID with my grandson, and my daughter-in-law said, "You stay with him and I'll go to the supermarket." And he was there. I went to check him, and I texted her, "Everything is okay." And I came home and she came home and she was laughing, and she goes, "What do you mean everything is okay?" I said, "Yes, he was in the computer and the whole thing." And she showed me a text of the teacher. "Your son decided to go offline. His camera's off and his sound is off." And I just checked him and he was like playing, and I go, "Oh my God." It's like when you're in class, you cannot shut the computer and just leave. We're teachers, that's what they did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine trying to teach little kids like that
Yeah,
remotely
it was a tough experience.
So what do you so I know there are probably a lot of women out there who don't even know if they're being paid fairly. Is there anything you'd recommend for them to kind of find out if they're getting paid fairly and to know whether to bring it up to somebody?
I would think that the first thing to do is go to HR and ask them, "Am I being paid the same?" And if you get like the runaround, then you probably know that you're not being paid fairly. The other thing is, if you're in a public company, like do some research. There probably is out there something that you can find out. Because I know it's a difficult topic to ask someone. Like I know that was the first thing when I came here. I asked someone and I said, "How much are you getting paid on this?" And they look at me, "Oh my God, no, you never ask that question. That is like off limits. You can never." And I was like, "Why?" But I don't know what it was behind it, but I learned that that is like asking a woman her age.
Yeah.
You cannot ask her how much she did win. But according to the World Bank, if we don't do something, it's going to take us 267 years to close the gender gap.
Yeah,
We need to do something, and that something is in our hands.
yeah. Yeah, so interesting. Growing up in corporate, and it was always, never share salary information. You could get called out, you could get written up if you talked about it with other people. And it's interesting now to see, like in some states, they are, considering, and I'm not sure, I haven't followed it to see if they've passed it, but where, you know, salaries and pay has to be made public to everybody. So it's interesting and heartening to see that turnaround or
Okay,
start to
so
turn
that
around.
part, that's an easier way of looking and seeing if you're really being paid fairly.
Right.
Or HR can come back with a whole list, like you don't do this, this, and this, and then it's up to you to say, "Okay, I can do this, 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 and this. I want to get paid more."
Mm-hmm. Now, how do you propose that when a woman does find out that they're making less than their male counterparts for the same exact position, what steps do you suggest that they take?
I suggest that they go directly to their boss and talk to them directly. And if they don't get any response, send a letter to their boss and send a letter to HR. But really documenting, like I'm doing the same job, I'm doing this, this, and this. I really think that there needs to be a fair compensation. But I know a lot of women are afraid to ask and to get like, okay, what happens if I get fired? And that is a risk that you have to take. Because if they fire you, that means that they're not valuing what you do. And then you can take it on the good side. Go and look for another job, and in the other job, just ask for what you really want.
That's interesting. I was talking to somebody last week, or well, recently, about being worried, even to like bring up when they feel like they've been subjected to unfair actions or even, covert sexual comments, but not bringing that up because they are scared of losing the job and don't have the luxury of having like being out of a job. Do you think that that is, also something to consider? Well, I guess that kind of gives the like makes us understand like why they might not feel like they can go to their boss.
I think, yeah, that's the biggest issue
Mm-hmm.
of being afraid of losing their jobs. But I think that if they know that they're doing a good job, then go ask. The worst thing that can happen is, like I always tell the girls, like, make yourself indispensable. That when you miss a day of work, when you come back, they go, oh, where were you? I needed you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you know that you're doing something valuable. And you can really ask for more. Like, don't be afraid. Well, I cannot say don't be afraid because nobody knows the position that the other person is in. But if you don't ask, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
And now with the employment the other way around is the moment to do that. It's like people are afraid. They're more afraid now. I'm not talking before, but before when they were a lot of job openings. But now I think it's the best, the perfect timing on asking if you're not being paid fair because they are more afraid of losing you than you losing your job because you cannot get people to work now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that now is the time to do it.
Yeah, and I think also for those thinking about going into those conversations, if they really think about like in their minds, think about how the conversation's going to go, you simply asking for more money, like saying, I know I'm unpaid fairly, I am doing XYZ, other people are doing XYZ. I believe that I should be paid, X amount of money. And I'd like to understand how we can get there. There's really like, if you think about it, that's not, I mean, people might be scared going into that conversation, but nobody's going to say, you can't ask that question, you're fired. So,
Correct.
know.
It's like we're afraid of doing things before we even know. And I promise you, when there is a big corporation and like you have a boss that responds to another boss, I don't think he even knows how much you're paid. I I think I'm gonna throw out a number. I think 70% of the bosses don't even know how much the women that work for them get paid. Because a lot of people have to, oh, really? You get paid that? So it's like starting a conversation if you're not happy with what you're paid and you find out because there's no point in going and saying, okay, I want to raise just because. That's one thing. Or I want to raise because I'm doing more work. that's a valuable excuse. But the real excuse is I want to raise because I'm doing exactly the same job as the guy next to me and I'm being paid less.
Yeah, I think it,
Now that is huge.
yeah, you could definitely go into that conversation, you know, with the expectation that they're going to be a partner in that discussion and be a partner in helping you resolve that. And I think taking that approach is going to provide more, a better outcome.
Yes. And it's just asking,
Yeah.
just having the conversation. But if you don't open the door to having it, you're always going to keep it inside. Like really, I never asked. And if you don't ask, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually important in so many different situations, not just this. Definitely
No,
communication. Mhm.
in a lot of situations.
Yes. Yeah. So, what do you think about a lot of companies are initiating DEI initiatives? Have you seen any positive results in terms of fair pay coming out of those initiatives?
I think they're starting, but we don't have like exact data to really know. But what I do know is that companies led by women are doing it in a much faster way. There's also a really interesting statistic that when a woman is on top, there's 18% more productivity
Yeah.
in her team versus the team that's led by a man. So more productivity. Also the women understands more, and a lot of women are not like that, but most of the women really understand more in the sense of that if you're taking care of someone that you need to go to the doctor or if those kinds of things. That now I think it's more on a human side. I think it's more on a human side, like we're not slaves. Like I
Yeah.
understand that you need to take a day off to go to the doctor to do this, but before it was, look how things have changed since the 1930s. People didn't even get to do anything because they had um, very strict laws of the time. But in that way, you would see people that they literally disconnect at 5 p.m. and they check out.
Yeah.
So if now the leader in the women in leadership position open up a little more of being more flexible, you would see that the employees are more engaged.
Yeah, and I think too, it's so interesting. You don't even need to go back as far as the 1930s. I read the book My Life in Full by Indra Nooyi, and to kind of understand everything that she had to do and what she had to kind of give up and how she had to position herself coming up in, I think, I don't want to say like the 70s, and then making it to CEO of Pepsi. It's just it's an amazing story that I hope a lot of women still don't have to struggle through.
Well, remember that there was a time in the 70s and 80s that women in higher positions, they were asked, oh, how did you get there? Like implying you slept with the boss and now you got there. And it was like very frustrating because it
Yeah.
wasn't that the women had the qualities and what they needed to move ahead in the ladder. It was, oh, they had to do something to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. I came into, let me see, the workforce in the early 90s, and I worked for a professional services firm. and they required that all women had to wear pantyhose and skirts, and of course closed-toed heels, shoes, which I think hasn't changed in a lot of places, but I just remember that, and that wasn't so long ago. I mean, I think we've made a lot of progress, but I don't feel like it definitely hasn't been enough, especially how business and technology and everything has progressed so so quickly, and like we're kind of slowly making making our progress.
But I think that a dress code is a completely different
Mm.
because if you don't put a dress code, then you will see women dressed in whatever.
Oh, I agree.
Oh, I
Yes.
think a
Yeah.
dress code, but that doesn't mean pantyhose and a skirt.
Yeah.
Well, it could mean the same thing with ties and jackets for men. That is just putting a dress code. The closed shoe, I can tell you that whenever I do an event, that is the first thing that I tell my staff. They cannot wear open shoe. They have to wear clothes for two reasons. One, you don't know if they really take care of their nails or how they look, and second, it looks more presentable. It, open toe shoes for me implies vacation,
Yeah.
going to the beach.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about a dress code.
Yes, I completely agree with that. It just in my mind, and I actually did end up wearing pantsuits and didn't really follow the because
And
I think
nobody said anything.
yeah, nobody said anything.
That's
Yeah,
the
exactly. I mean,
point. Nobody said anything.
yeah, it's just so interesting that was the time that. But you know what's so funny is I was out a week or two ago, and somebody was talking about, I just can't take pantsuits anymore. I just want to wear a skirt and feel free. I was like, it just brought flashbacks to those times.
I want to be free.
Yeah. So, anything more that you would say about closing the gender gap that we haven't covered?
Well, one of the things is that we forget is about um, personal branding, that we are our brand. So we need to present ourselves as such. And we were talking about the way we are dressed, the way we present ourselves, the way we shake hands and look at the person in the eye, the way we give our business cards. Remember, for example, the Japanese, their business cards is represent even more than just a little paper. The business card is who they are, who they represent. And for example, I will never forget. Remember, there's women's organizations that that are women business owners, and there's other organizations that are networking for women. That it doesn't matter if you're a women business owner or an executive. Other organizations, and I remember going to one, and it was high level executives, and they were all impeccably dressed. Like they had their pantsuits or their skirt suits. They were perfectly put together. And then I went to the conference of women business owners. And I was shocked to see that women wearing tennis shoes and sweatshirts, they didn't care how they look because it was their own business. And I said, on the contrary, it's your business. This is how you need to project yourself.
Yeah.
Like they dress better if they work for a bank, but if they own their business, they don't care. And that is a mistake because your brand is who you are.
Yeah.
So
Completely
that's
agree.
something that we really need to learn. Other things that we teach these girls is a lot of the networking and a lot of the business is done over meals. So it's the way how you eat, how you behave in a table. That is really important.
Yeah, I love that. I love the personal branding as well. And I have noticed the same thing. And it's been interesting because I started this business down here in Miami, and I've been trying to get a sense for if it's just a Miami Miami thing, or if it is like when I'm networking with small business owners, or not just women business owners, but just small business owners, the casualness that everybody dresses.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's half, part both.
part both. But if you go, for example, to a networking where there are executives of a banking industry, of a law industry, you see everybody. Like it was very funny because the other day I said to someone that they had a meeting in Brickell. And I said, okay, if you're going to that side of town, wear a jacket and a tie. They go, nobody wears. And I go, where you're going, they do. It's more of the banking industry. But people are being more laid back. I've seen two trends, either go laid back to the other side or starting to get back to the jacket and tie and the more presentable way.
Yeah, that's good to know because I saved all my jackets from corporate. So I want to know that I'll be able to wear them.
You will, and you know what? You're never going to be overdressed.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's better to be underdressed than overdressed.
better to be overdressed. Yeah,
Than
overdressed than
underdressed.
underdressed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. My husband and I say that all the time when we are going to a new restaurant and we don't know, how everybody's going to be dressed. That's his saying, better to be overdressed than underdressed. And
Correct.
yeah.
It's the same thing if you go to an event.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know we only have 15 or so minutes left. I'd love to just ask you about general leadership. You've owned your own business for quite a number of years, and you've been in a leadership role. Is there any advice, just general leadership advice, that you would give to our audience about leading as they move into that position?
I learned something very useful that actually I think I think no, I need to keep on learning. Somebody once told me that we have two ears and one mouth, that we need to listen double and talk half of the time. And I'm still trying to get it that way because I talk a lot. So it's more about listening and then talking about it. And just last week, a friend of mine told me that one of the lessons of Marco, the German chancellor, that she wrote into her book was that whenever there was a tough situation, she took 1 or 2 days before responding and analyzing what everybody was saying before making her decision. And a lot of people said that she was lazy, that she didn't follow through, but it was the other way around. It was analyzing the best way she could forward. And the other way is there's always two sides of the story. So there's a little story that can illustrate that. And a mother had there's a little girl that has two apples, and the mother goes to the girl and says, "Can I have one?" And the little girl bit one apple and then bit the other one. And the mother was so disappointed because she said, "Oh my God, she wants to keep the two apples." Like, like she was a little disappointed. And the little girl said, "Here, mom, have this one. This one is sweeter."
Oh, wow.
So that illustrates that there's always two sides of the whole thing.
Yeah, I love that. In one of our courses, we talk about making assumptions, and I think that fits really well with that because you can either look at it from a positive lens or a negative lens, and from a negative lens, you are not getting the full story. But then what happens is if you look at somebody in a negative lens, it's just this self-perpetuating cycle because that's going to make that person feel less valued or that they're being watched more than other people. They're going to feel like they are not enough, and they're going to potentially work to that lower level of expectation. And then, which is going to have you make further assumptions, and it's just going to keep going downhill. And I think that is so important as a leader to make sure that you understand the full story, and looking at it through a positive lens before you jump to conclusions.
Or trying to analyze what happens. And there's some people that are very strategic that would not make a decision and they look at what happens on the next step and the next step. So they really strategize that. But I think women are more, and I'm more emotional. I make decisions more on the emotional side. So that's a whole different story. It depends on how you act. Like, I, for example, see some people that really think about their next move because somebody will do this or they will do that. It's like a chess player. I'm more emotional on the moment and what's the situation at that point and analyzing at that point what needs to be done. I know we need to look into further out, but I think I have to go back and start all over again and be more strategic. That
No,
is literally something that I haven't been able to master.
I think there's a good balance because you definitely want to have that emotion, and people need to feel connected to you as a person, as a leader. And so you need to be able to show those emotions so they understand that, it's not all about the business, but, you care about them as well.
But it wasn't like that a long time ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. Remember that if you were emotional,
Yeah.
you were considered less. That if you cried or something or you got nervous, you were considered much less than somebody else. And it's like, okay, grow up or you're not fit for this job. But that doesn't mean that you cannot, that there's not the other side of the story.
Yeah.
You don't know what the other person is going through that day.
Yeah. Yeah. I had my share of executives I worked for that would make people cry and run to the bathroom. It's definitely not the leadership model we want to kind of teach and have people pass on.
No, because if you can be empathetic with
Yeah.
with the people that you work with, you can be empathetic. That shows that you understand that you're connecting to that person.
Um,
And I think they will be more productive if you connect emotionally
yes.
with the person.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I'd love to ask you for your own personal well-being. Like, do you have any morning routines that you follow or evening routines that you have to have in place to make sure your day goes well?
Well, I have one thing that I started to do a long time ago, and it has worked. That my me time is very early in the morning. Like I need the 1 hour before I really need to start getting ready, just for coffee, newspaper, read a book, whatever. But it's like starting the day. I call it my me time. So
Mhm.
if I need an hour to get ready, then I would wake up 2 hours before. And that hour is for me. So you're not stressed. You need to go really fast. So that part has worked a lot, even though there's some mornings that I need to wake up extremely early. But I found out that it works, that it helps me start the day in a more calmer way. And if it's going to be really stressful, then if I don't get the luxury of having that hour, then at least half an hour to have like a little bit of a spare time, because I found out that if I'm too close to what I need to do, especially in time, then that's where the stress comes more. Like somebody asked me yesterday that I had for an event that I had the schedule wrong. That I have it that the event started at 5:30 and when actually the event starts at 6. And I said, no, for me the event starts at 5:30 because at 5:30 everybody needs to be in their place ready to go. It's not when the event starts. You need to start before. And that half an hour, if you have anything that is missing, then you have that time frame to make it happen. Because if not, then that clicks, that that goes your stress level because you're gonna run out of time. You start looking at the clock. So no, it's about the timing.
Yeah.
And the pizza pie. I call it the pizza pie, and every day it's how you cut your pizza. Depends on the amount of things you need to do is cutting the slice of pizza according to what needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
and and always remember to leave a little piece for you,
Yes. Yes.
because we always forget to do that.
That's such an important, so important, even if it's a half hour blocking time in the afternoon or, you know, in the middle of the day, just to take that time and think. And I mean, to be a great leader, you need that time to think strategically, think about what's happened, and just refresh yourself. I think I wish more people would make sure they were taking care of themselves like that.
The other part that somebody gave me an advice when I said I'm blocked, I can't think, like I was concentrated on something very specific and I said I'm blocked. And she told me, you know what, change of what you're doing and start doing something else,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it will unblock you. And I said, but I haven't finished this. I said, but you're blocked, so you're not going to finish it. And I did that, and it actually worked.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's like shifting when you're really concentrating on someone and you see that you have like a roadblock, shifting to something else, and then it will clear the path.
I love that.
I know that a lot of people do yoga, meditation, and everything for that. For me, it hasn't worked. I think I'm very hyper for that. I think I'm very hyper for that. But for the people that yoga, meditation, and that helps them calm and that's their me time, I am all for it. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what, as long as it works for you.
Yeah, because even, I mean, certain things can be meditation, even cooking can be meditation for
Correct. For
people. I
some
mean, it
people,
doesn't,
it's cooking.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Well, but so I know I'm springing this question on you, and you didn't really get to prepare, but is there any, do you listen to music, and is there one particular song that when you're feeling a little blue or down that really gets you moving or energized?
Running.
What's that?
A song that gets me up and running.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, when I want to calm down, I actually listen to The Secret Garden, which is like um, what's The Secret Garden? Like a very calm music. And there's a few that gets me up and going. One is music from Carlos Vives,
Okay.
which is very Latin upgoing. Or there used to be a song from Ricardo Montaner in Spanish that it had Yo que te amé. And I remember when my kids were little that they were nervous in school or something, we used to put that song and like scream it,
Oh,
like sing it like really, really loud, and it got them going. So the other day I was really stressed out and I put that song and it brought me back the feeling that, okay,
wow.
so
Well,
yeah,
thank you so much for sharing that. And Gladys, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you and your time and you sharing all of this advice that I think everybody can find very useful, and hopefully they take it and make some moves with it. Is there anything you would like to add as we close this out? And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way to do that?
my email, gm@gladysmezrahi.com, or my cell phone, 305-798-0328. I'm not afraid to give my cell phone out. You can reach out to me. WhatsApp or text is a very easy way to reach me.
Wow.
And just be passionate about what you really are doing. If you lose that passion, then move to something else. But I think the passion of what you do is the drive that makes it happen.
Such wonderful and great advice to close us out. And thank you, Gladys.
Oh, thank
I
you, Joe.
will have a great afternoon, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle again. Just one more thing before you take off. If you've enjoyed this podcast, consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Bosstrack, or sign up for our free weekly newsletter. It's easy to sign up and easy to cancel. Every Monday, we send out a short, exclusive newsletter of what we found during the week that we're excited about, we're inspired by, and we're watching and reading. If you'd like to check it out, just to go to thebosstrack.com/newsletter. Just type that into your browser, thebosstrack.com/newsletter. Drop in your email and you'll get the very next one. Thanks for listening.